it's amazing to me that Donald Trump, none of his surrogates, no one like on the pro-Trump side seems to be able to effectively hit Kamala Harris with what is the most obvious thing to hit her with. It's the greatest scandal in American history, which is like what you just said, that we don't have a president. The president of the United States, everybody has essentially admitted, is too senile to run for president. Yet he's going to be president until January? We are in a proxy war with the biggest nuclear power in the history of the world, and we have another proxy war-ish type thing that looks to be devolving into a wider regional war in Israel, and we don't have a president. This is like the biggest scandal in the history of the republic, if we're a republic anymore, and Kamala Harris is directly implicated in this. Like, she was one of the major people lying through her teeth that Joe Biden is sharp as a tack in private meetings. And it seems like somehow the Trump campaign has not been able to effectively hit her for this. It's like right there in front of us. You pulling Joe Biden out was admitting that he's too senile to run for president.
Yes.
And yet you're not invoking the 25th Amendment. This is what it's for. He clearly can't be president. And then what does it say about the machine that they're quite happy with that? That works very well for them.
I mean, there are two levels in which it's upsetting. One is the practical level, which is you probably do want a commander-in-chief if you're on the cusp of nuclear war, which we are. But the other is philosophical and speaks to whether our current system can continue. I mean, we're just admitting now that that we don't have an executive, that we don't need an executive. This is governed, that we are governed by an unelected body of people whose names we don't know. Yeah. Whose motives we don't understand. Like, what?
Right. And also as we
so that's sort of the end, right?
And as we all know, the only reason they pulled Joe Biden is because it became clear he couldn't win. But if he could have won, they'd be quite happy to keep him in there. Like, they like that. It's probably better that they don't have this guy who every now and then might think he's president of the United States of America.
Why is there no curiosity about who they is?
Yeah, well, that's a good question.
I mean, I can't answer that. I mean, I think most people assume Obama is at the top of that pyramid, but I can't confirm that. We don't know. I haven't heard really anybody in a position of authority ask, like, who does run the government?
Yeah, and I don't know that there's an easy, I mean, I don't know the answer to that, but I don't know that there's an easy answer. Right? I don't think it's Obama. I mean, I think Obama has influence, but I don't know how much Obama really ran the government when he was president of the United States. I certainly know that he definitely at the very beginning got rolled by his generals. And I think that he, I don't exactly know where he was on some of these issues, but at least with like what he ran on in terms of healthcare was not what Obamacare was at all. In fact, if you remember way back in ancient history in 2008, Hillary Clinton was the one who was for the individual mandate.
Of course.
And he criticized her. I actually thought it was a great line he had in the debate. He was like, the individual mandate solves the health insurance crisis in the same way that mandating you buy a house solves the homelessness problem, which was like a great line. Yes. Totally. And that's totally exactly right. I mean, how does that help anything to mandate you buy something that you've already deemed you can't afford to buy? Right. But then that's what Obamacare ultimately was. And why is it? Oh, this is good for the insurance companies. So it's like, it seems to me like he was always getting rolled by what are the powerful interests, which are essentially big business that owns the government, uses the government as a tool to increase their profits. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know who's really running things. Is it the director of national intelligence? Is it Biden's chief of staff? I don't know, but it's not Joe Biden. That's for sure.
And Kamala Harris seems like kind of flotsam on the waves of history herself. Like is she making independent judgments and choices is she driving her own narrative? I don't think so.
I don't think she stands for anything. I think she's just like, I don't think there's one issue ever where it's like, no, she believes in this passion and she's going to stand up and try her best to make sure this goes through. It's kind of like, she was an aggressive prosecutor in California, but if she was a prosecutor right now in California, I'm sure she'd be one of these progressive prosecutors. It's just like, which way was the wind blowing? Is that the thing to get me more power?
Before we get into the details of what's actually happening right now, just to speed ahead a year, no matter who wins, does anybody believe that our system functions as advertised? I mean, do we know too much sort of continue?
It's a good question. And, I think that our system has worked this way for a very long time. What's really drastically changed is that people have really woken up to it.
Yeah.
It's a mix of several things. Obviously, like the internet is a huge part of that, and social media and stuff like that. And then also just the Trump phenomenon of the kind of the deep state coming out of the shadows to some degree, and even I know I've heard you talk about this, the clip before, and I've played it a million times on my podcast, but where Chuck Schumer was on with Rachel Maddow, and he says the thing, which is an amazing moment, because if you look, she goes off script. And she asks, and she even says before she asks the question, she goes, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but President-elect Donald Trump, this is in January of 2016, he's won the election, but he's not president yet. Because President-elect Donald Trump was just tweeting, whatever, it was talking shit to the CIA or whatever. And he just off the cuff in a real moment goes, I would not do that. It was like the most honest thing Chuck Schumer's ever said.
It was amazing.
Was 6 ways to Sunday to get back at you.
But I never really believed, I was an idiot, obviously. I didn't really believe any of that. I was hunting probably 10 years ago down in South Texas, right in the Rio Grande on somebody's ranch. And this guy comes out with a box about this big and an aerial, like a fiberglass line that went up, and the end of it was connected to a raccoon tail. And it was a coyote call. And they turned this thing on, and it made the sound of a dying animal. Like just hard, like from the depths of Hades, these sounds. And then this tail would whip around in the air like it's the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. And out of nowhere, within about 3 minutes, all these animals showed up. There was a big cat, all these coyotes. And I thought, that's kind of what Trump is. He's like a coyote call. Like he shows up, and out of this landscape that looks desolate, like nothing's going on, all of a sudden the predators come out, and you see for the first time that you were always surrounded by these things. They were always there. You just didn't see them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I felt that way very much about the intel agencies. Like, of course, I applied to work at one. I knew they were there. But I really had no idea the degree to which they're running everything.
Well, I think that's exactly right. Right. So it's like, it's not, so like say in like the 90s when I was a kid, and if my parents, had, like they used to always have a Crossfire, was before you were on it. It was the Pat Buchanan
and Tom Braden.
They'd have that on or whatever. And there'd be and they knew the CIA existed. It's not like they weren't aware. And they were like, it's a super secret spy organization that does super secret spy stuff. They kind of knew that.
Against our enemies.
Right. But it was never like a thought. Like, okay, the presidential election between Clinton and Bob Dole is coming up. How much is the CIA just crafting the illusion of what we see in front of us? That never would have been a thought. Now, that's a thought that's in a lot of people's minds about like the whole thing is fake. There's a great quote that your CIA guy had when you asked about the Kennedy assassination. It was such a great line because yes, the government was involved. It's all fake. It's all fake. That's the perfect line to describe.
But we know that. I think people know that. They know that. And that's why everyone's going crazy and really getting down these rabbit holes. I understand why. But like, does that ever change? Like once you know this, can you unknow it?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.